In today's brand new episode of Hill Climb Monsters in Project Cars 2, we're being joined by a very special guest, and they're going to be picking the car. But what will they choose? Only one way to find out. What's going on, guys? My name's Basilio, and welcome back to Project Cars 2 and a brand new episode of Hill Climb Monsters. And if you remember at the end of last week's episode, I said that we'd be having someone new. Well, someone come in. It's not new necessarily, not new to me. But we're having someone come in and basically choose the car for this week. And the person who's choosing is a huge fan of mine, obviously. Who isn't? Everybody is. I mean, you know, he's a former two-time Formula 1 world champion, and no, I'm joking, he's none of those things, but it is my biggest fan, I think. Are you my biggest fan? Yeah, okay, well, he is, fair enough. If you think you're my biggest fan and you're watching this, then leave a comment down below. But it's my nephew Caden. Say hello.
Hello.
Right then, and the reason I'm letting him do this, like I said, he surprisingly likes watching my videos. I don't know why, I thought it was smarter than that, to be honest with you, to be watching my videos, but apparently he's my biggest fan, and also it was his... How old were you yesterday?
I was 7 and I'm still 17.
Right, okay, well, that's understandable. Unless you're not a time traveller, are you? You're a time lord or something?
No.
Okay, alright, that's fair enough. So yeah, he's going to choose the car for this week. And I suppose this is going to be the acid test of how cool of an uncle I am. Have I taught him well? Is he going to pick something awesome, or is he going to pick something terrible? That's going to frustrate and annoy Uncle Matinio. I don't know. This is, you know how they say you shouldn't work with kids or animals? Yeah, we're going to find out if that's actually true for the first part, at least. I know not to work with animals because they're annoying. But yeah, so you're going to choose, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to choose something very, very good. Better than Lamborghini.
Well, you better do, otherwise you're grounded. Better? Did you say better than a Lamborghini? Ooh, okay. Right then. So, excuse me. So this isn't his first YouTube video. Actually, there is a video on YouTube of him basically running. Well, yeah, you haven't seen the first one, so you don't really know. But there is a funny video on YouTube of my nephew. Basically when he was a kid and his pajamas were a bit too big for him and there was a cat running. I'll try and put a clip up. I'll put a clip up now if I can find it. If not, then I apologise, but it is very, very funny. I'll try and find it for you. But yeah, so he's going to choose for us, and like I said, the episode's going to be a little bit different because normally I do all the driving and the choosing, and then I come back and do the commentary. Obviously, I'm doing the commentary beforehand, and then that. So he's going to choose, and then he's going to tell us why he chose it. So yeah, this might take a while, but we'll be back in a second with Caden's choice.
Yep.
6.5 hours later.
Okay then, we're back, and yeah, he's chosen. he picked out a few cars, didn't you?
Yeah.
You liked it, and then we came back to this one, and this was the one he ultimately landed on, the Jaguar XJR9 LM, and this car won quite a lot actually. I know it won. I think it won on its debut at the Daytona 24 Hours. Which is a long, long time ago. You won't even remember. I think it was back in 88 or 89. It did actually win Le Mans as well at one point, if I recall correctly, but I could be wrong. So why did you choose this one?
Because it looks the fastest one out of all of them to me, and I believe it will be the fastest out of all again. And I know it will beat the time again and again every time we try it.
Right, so you're confident that this car is going to be top of the leaderboard come the end of it when I finish driving it? Are you positive?
Yeah. I'm actually positive.
I think he may have a point, considering this probably is the fastest car we've had. I've not even driven it yet, and I know it's probably the fastest car. So, rear-wheel drive, of course, quite light, just under 200,000 pounds, 720 brake horsepower being produced by that massive V12 5-speed gearbox. No traction control, ABS, stability control, none of that gubbins, and top speed of 240 miles an hour. That's a lot, isn't it? That's a lot.
Yeah,
0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds as well. So yeah, I've tinkered around with this because I can't remember what channel it was. There's a YouTube channel. There was a guy who drove it. I think he's one of the new hosts of Top Gear. He actually drove this car and said how good it was. So yeah. Right, because normally at this point I would have already driven the car, so I'm not sure. I kind of have an idea of what it's like, and it feels very, very good. From the limited driving I've had, I turned like 2 or 3 laps around Brands Hatch. But as we know, our hill climb is a lot different, isn't it? It's a very, very long course. So what we're going to do now is, considering I haven't practiced, I'm going to do my practicing. So we're not going to have any clips of that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to cut now to the actual full-blown, full-blooded hot lap and the best time that we put up. And yeah, so there we go. Do you have anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Yep.
Okay, what?
I actually know this is fast, and I bet this will be about 100 miles an hour around the lap.
An average, we can't measure average speed. That might be that could be a good shout. This thing being an average speed of doing an average 100 mile an hour throughout the lap. That could be a pretty good shout actually. See how I've taught him. See, he just knows this stuff. He just knows this stuff, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah. What are you gonna be when you grow up?
Racing driver.
And
a wrestler. And a police officer.
A police officer who wrestles and races in his spare time. Wow. Okay. Fair enough. You heard it here first, boys and girls. If he's a wrestler and a racing driver and a police officer, I mean, if he's a police officer, you're speeding in his precinct, you know, in his general area, you ain't getting away from him. Nah, he's probably gonna be driving one of these. Okay, so yeah, we're going to cut to the full-blooded hot lap, and we're going to see if the Jaguar XJR 9 LM can beat the current leading time, which is the Porsche 935 from a couple of weeks ago. So we'll be
yeah, that's right.
So let's see how it gets on.
Cut.
Okay, cut apparently. Okay then, guys, here we go on our full-blooded hot lap, and this car is very, very good, but there are a number of frustrating things. The setup of this car, the majority of the time I spent setting the car up, it was all about trying to sort the brakes out. The brakes on this thing were basically like bear traps. You know, you step on a bear trap, it snaps shut, that's it, job done. The brakes on this thing are very much the same. If you apply just the slightest little bit of pressure too much, the brakes are just locking. And I don't mean the fronts. The fronts you can somewhat deal with. I can deal with front brake locking. It's a problem, but I can deal with it. The real problem that I don't think many people can deal with and nobody wants is rear locking. And even just pushing the bias forward and lowering the brake pressure, it just wasn't doing the trick. So it came down to a point where I was having to sort of... My practice time was spent trying to train myself to regulate the brake pressure, not being able to do it and get it how I want it in setup. I had to do it with myself with my own foot, which I'm not gonna lie, it caused a lot of accidents. It really did. By doing it that way, you really do have to be absolutely spot on with your braking zone, and you've got to brake. Well, it will feel like early. You've got to brake relatively early with this car. You can't, if you start doing late braking and try and just apply a little bit more brake pressure just to, you know, cover that little extra time that you lingered, I suppose, on the accelerator, then it's just going to lock up and you're going to be pirouetting. And you're going to see here, we just get a little bit out of shape. Luckily, we just about catch it. But yeah, like I said, this car was a challenge. I mean, suspension-wise, not really much to set up. It was very, very well set up. I did soften the rear up a little bit because there were a couple of occasions where I'd be coming over bumps and the rear was just a bit too rigid, and it was causing the rear to break traction when you come over some abrupt bumps, which in this car, if you break traction, with most cars I think, if you break traction at the rear, then you're going to have an accident. So it was just about softening up to get it to absorb the bumps rather than to bounce off of them, if that makes sense. Everything else was fine. I did dial up the aero a little bit just purely because of the nature of the track. Through the slower corners, as we've just been through there, James May corner, it was challenging. It really was challenging. This thing properly excels through those, the medium speed corners and the high speed corners. The slower speed corners is where this thing is really going to struggle, because it is through the slow speed corners. It's quite oversteery. It really is. But everywhere else, it was pretty much fine. Coming down here, coming down outrun through this section of corners here, this little left-right corner, absolutely brilliant. It's just an absolute joy to drive. But I don't know, through the first sector it was good. Through the second sector, it was okay. As we're going to be coming up to it in a little while, the Montgomery Hill Climb Complex, that was very much an area where you are tippy-toeing. For a lot of cars, you will be tippy-toeing just a little bit, but this one was just going above and beyond, I think, in terms of how careful you had to be just to get it through there. It was an enjoyable drive. I'm not going to say it wasn't. It was an enjoyable drive, but yeah, it was very much a case. Sometimes when I finish these laps, I'll be sitting there thinking, oh, I'm happy with that, I'm happy with that. Sometimes you're kind of just sitting there thinking, oh, I'm relieved, You're either happy or relieved, and this was a relieved sort of car that I got a decent lap in. I hadn't binned it anywhere, and I'd managed to do it in the time limit, because prior to this run that you're seeing now, I did have a really good run. But the last corner, I made a mistake and I clanged off the right side wall and then the left side wall as well. I was like, oh, I can't end it like that. I've still got 20 minutes to go. I can get another run in. I can get another couple of runs in maybe, and I can do better. And thankfully, well, we did. Not much better than that run. I'm not going to tell you the times, obviously you can't see them. But yeah, coming down into Mirage 1, that was one of the corners this car struggled with. The rear would break traction, which is why, like I said, I softened up the rear and I tried to just add maybe a little bit more downforce. I'm not sure whether this car had what would be considered ground effects. I don't believe it did. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments down below. But it did feel like it had a lot of grip. It's like I said, it was just I don't think it really had the mechanical grip to go through those slower speed corners. And but once you kind of get going, once you get ahead of steam, this thing will just stick to the road. It is absolutely brilliant. And like I said, coming through the Montgomery complex was, that was the most challenging part. If you can get through there and you haven't lost too much time, then you've got a chance, because coming down into this last sector, this is where this car comes alive. It is so good. Once you get into those high to medium speed, those sweeping corners, this thing is just an absolute different animal. It really is. It's like I said, it's a little bit Jekyll and Hyde through the first part of the lap. The first couple of sectors, it's a little bit, it's sluggish sometimes, and it's a little bit temperamental. But down into this section here, like I said, this is where it comes alive, and this, it is just it's so good to drive. It really is. Through this final sector, this is probably the most enjoyable car I've driven. That is how good I think it is. And I've driven some really enjoyable cars through this section, but this one, by far and away, purely because it sticks. It's got a lot of downforce. Like I said, once you get up ahead of steam and that downforce starts to be applied and it just sticks to the road, you can just, not necessarily fling it through corners, but it will just flow beautifully from one corner to the next, and it will just, no drama at all, none at the rear, none at the front. It is just absolutely superb. And again, the same could be said down into Rocky Road. This is an area where understeery cars do get caught out, but like I said, it's only the slower speed corners where this one struggles with understeer. Sorry. Through here, it is absolutely superb. As we come down now towards the final corner, and like I said, on previous run I did have a little bit of an accident here, so I was a little bit cautious as we come through it. But once we got it planted and we're going to kind of cross the line, and it's going to be a time of 6 minutes 26 seconds .467. So, as my nephew mentioned and said, he's not here right now unfortunately, but he said this was going to be the fastest car, and well, he was right. My nephew Caden was right. He's probably watching. He's, like I said, he's not here now. He's probably watching. So you're right, Caden. This is the fastest car by quite a distance actually. So he's beaten the Porsche quite comprehensively. And what else can you say, really? Like I said, the main thing with this car, if you're going to drive it, if you're going to do it on this course, is the braking. The braking is going to be the problem. And the issue that you're going to run to it. Every car's got an issue that you need to dial out, and some it's not necessarily about just dialing it out. It's just about getting it to an acceptable point. The braking is the problem with this one. But as you can see, in terms of the actual the leaderboards, we're 10th on the first page of the leaderboard for this. There are a couple of Group C cars ahead of us. You know, the Nissan GTP ZX Turbo. There's 3 of those, but we are the 4th fastest Group C car, and we've made the first page, so I'm happy with that. I do think I could go a bit faster. I think I made, not necessarily a mistake, I got a little bit out of shape at one of the corners through the first sector. I know I can go faster, but it's not going to be blockbuster faster. It's not like I'm going to find 5 or 6 seconds through doing that. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get 9th. I think just from looking at this, I think the ZX Turbo, the Nissan ZX Turbo might be just inherently a better car. But I'm very, very happy with this. It was a very enjoyable run. You know, a little bit frustrating at times. There'd be problems with, like, you know, those, you know, smack the steering wheel moments, like, oh god damn it, why? But yeah, it was an enjoyable run. So yeah, that is the end of today's episode, guys. So thank you everybody so much for watching. If you did enjoy, would like to see more Project Cars 2 and racing content from myself, then make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, make sure you leave a happy birthday wish for my nephew down below. And also, because we'll be getting back to, I would say, normal next week, if you have any suggestions for cars you would like to see, always happy to hear from you. Let me know in the comments, guys. But again, thank you everybody so much for watching. Take care, and once again, big happy birthday to my nephew Caden. You make me feel old every time I see you because you're getting too big now. But again, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace!